Howdy, y'all. How you
Hello,
guys doing?
hello.
Hey, Noma. How you doing
Hi.
today?
Hi, Patrick. I'm doing great, even though it's gloomy today in Austin, but yeah, but I'm doing well.
Yeah, it is. I brought the bad weather with me, but hopefully I bring some more excitement as we are here. Starts on another episode of Howdy Partner, where it's a weekly live streaming series where we highlight AWS partners in the APN, which is the Amazon AWS Partner Network. Where we allow partners to go ahead and show us what they have built, as far as and also consulting partners, who are experts in the field, and we run this between 2 to 4 PST on Wednesdays on AWS official's Twitch account. And yeah, so this is where partners are able to showcase all the amazing and wonderful things that they're doing, and giving customers, potential customers, and also partners, insight to what a better together story looks like. So with that being said, Noma, who do we have on the show today?
We didn't even introduce ourselves.
It's that weather, man. It's that weather. It's the weather. Sorry. I go ahead. You go ahead and do the,
Okay,
the,
my
the
name is Nneoma Okoroafor. I'm a partner solutions architect for AWS, and what I do is to help our AWS partners, especially the smaller ones, long tail partners, to help them scale out within the AWS partner network. And do you want me to talk about the people we have today, or you want to do introduction and then we go ahead?
um well, let me introduce myself as well, since I just did a terrible job. Well, I'm Patrick Vassell, and like Noma said, we are partner solutions architects, where we help partners discover, develop, and also, what's the other word?
We help them develop and scale.
Develop, scale,
Yeah,
as
high
well,
quality
and
capability.
deliver.
Yeah,
Yes, so we're here
deliver.
to deliver, and we have a partner who's been doing a great job delivering.
Yeah.
So we're very excited, and I would love Noma to go ahead and just let the people who are watching know who's actually going to be on the show today.
Yes, so we have our partner InfoBlox. They are really into providing like real-time visibility and control over who and what connects to your network.
Hmm.
So this allows allow customers to build safer and more resilient environments. So with that, we want to get the InfoBlox team to come on board.
Oh, let's bring them on stage. So we have an action packed, as far as set of amazing people at InfoBlock. So welcome aboard, everyone. How you all doing?
Good.
Doing good.
Good. Excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So I think this might be one of our records. Like, haven't been so
Yeah,
many, as far as like people. Like, I've
we
never
have
seen
so
one
many
like this. It's
people
pretty
in the
good.
point
So
today.
we should be in store with a really nice action packed conversation today. So definitely looking forward to it. So I guess we can go and start off, and as far as have everyone introduce themselves. I guess we can start with Mike.
Sure. So, Mike McIver, I'm the engineering manager for the channel team. So, we're the group of engineers that work with our partners, and most of those are actually Amazon partners that are out deploying these solutions to the customers. And my reach is the United States and Canada.
Awesome, fantastic. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Mike. Pradeep.
Yeah. Hi. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So I do product marketing. I lead the product marketing team at InfoBlox for our networking offerings, and work with customers to help drive, understand the problem sets, drive adoption. So looking forward to sharing with you, like you were saying, Nneoma, earlier, how we can help customers not only migrate workloads to the cloud, but also be more efficient and be more secure. So excited to be here.
Awesome. And Shawn.
Well, howdy! It's great to be on the stream here. We really appreciate you guys giving us this opportunity. My name is Shawn Pearson. I run the alliance between AWS and InfoBlox, and try and bring our companies a little closer together so we can serve our customers a little bit better. So nice to be on here.
Awesome. We'll definitely love to have you, Shawn. And last but definitely not least, Chris.
Hi, my name is Chris Elmore. I run the subject matter expert teams here at InfoBlox, and my reach is global.
Awesome. Love to see it. Love to see it. All right. Awesome. So that's great. So I guess we can start off with the basics. Like, so I know Pradeep kind of like hinted to the capabilities of InfoBlocks, but tell us more about InfoBlocks.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. So, yeah, so InfoBlocks, like you also introduced earlier, we unite critical network services like DNS and security so that organize to deliver performance and simplified management and protection for workloads that are on premises, but also in the hybrid cloud and also in the AWS cloud, right? So what does that mean? It means three things. Number one, we provide in-depth visibility into who and what is connecting to the network so that organizations can run faster and stop threats earlier, right? That's the first thing. Number two, we help organizations deploy application faster. We see a lot of our customers are in this hybrid world where they have some workloads on premises and some on the way to AWS and some already in AWS. And so we help customers deploy applications faster by taking away the manual handoffs between the NetOps teams and the cloud ops teams. So you take away those manual errors and you can deploy applications faster. And the third key thing that we help our customers do is has to do with workload agility. So we help customers automate things like IP address management, so that we have integrations with orchestration and automation tools like Ansible and Kubernetes and Terraform, so that you get that workload mobility through IP address automating the IP addresses. And so that's in a nutshell is what we do. And we are fortunate to have more than 13,000 customers trust our solutions, including 75% of the Fortune 500 and 92 of the Fortune 100 companies, and you know a tremendous partner like AWS. We have a lot of joint customers that we help address all of the challenges that I covered earlier.
Awesome, awesome. And I was not going to say this, but that ongoing saying is, it's always DNS, right? So
Yeah.
whenever there's an issue, it's always DNS. So are you all? I can see that you guys are always, like here to help, because DNS is a very challenging thing, to deal with, whether it's like on-prem or in the cloud. It's just even more of a puzzle, when it comes to incorporating like hybrid and everything. So I think you guys put the glue to a lot of a lot of complexity and make it fairly simple. So that's really awesome.
So
That's really awesome.
I do have something like a question to ask. What made you think of, okay, this is very important right now? Like maybe at the time or right now, why is it still important? Like for people to adopt your solution right now?
Yeah, I can add a little bit of color and then others can jump in. What we see, what our customers tell us is, there's a lot of customers um, who are dealing with the opportunities that the cloud offers. They're looking to move workloads to the cloud, but at the same time, they still have a lot of workloads that are on premises, right? So because this is a journey, right? This is a journey, and there's some applications that maybe they still want to keep it on premises, and some, of course, they want to move to the cloud. And so one of the challenges that they see is, how can I move to the cloud faster? And so InfoBlocks can help extend their on-premises namespaces. You mentioned DNS, right? One of the core critical network services, DNS and IP addresses. We can extend that to the cloud, so they don't have to solve it two times, once in on-premises, and then again in the cloud. And so we are seeing a lot of customer wins with that, and the and the customers are struggling with lack of visibility, right? So you have one environment or maybe multiple environments that you're running on premises, and then you have another environment running in the cloud. How do you get visibility across both of them? And many customers end up stitching that visibility themselves, and that's very manual and time consuming, and it makes it hard to do correlation, right? And so we help address that by providing a unified view, if you will, into the entire digital footprint, whether it's on premises or in the cloud. And so those are the two key reasons why we are seeing a lot of customers looking at our solutions. I don't know, Chris, you want to add some color to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think really it's about as we help migrate those workloads into the cloud and keep that consistent namespace there, so it doesn't get fragmented up, and it doesn't become difficult to manage. I mean, it needs to work seamlessly, and that's really one of the big benefits of where we help with that. And then once you have that, we can then provide consistent IP provisioning with our IPAM utility across all of a customer's environments, and those include on-prem environments and hybrid cloud environments, and then the AWS environments. So not having to solve for things twice and using that standard set of tooling that InfoBlox provides really assists with that.
Perfect. And for those who may not know, I know you mentioned like IPAM a few times. For the viewers who may not know what that is, would someone like to enlighten us what that means?
Sure. IPAM is IP address management. So is what that stands for.
Thank you.
So instead of using spreadsheets to track where everybody is on the network, we actually got a database that you can search and query and see what's going on. Makes it a lot simpler.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like thinking about a house, and you have your electrical box, and say the electrical box has like no labels on it, and like you're just moving things around, like it can get very ugly, So having that order as far as that that IP address management there definitely makes things easy for people who's just jumping in to the networking team and outside. So that's really good.
Yeah, no, just to add to that, if I may interrupt, Patrick, is like,
Of course.
we see customers, like mid-sized customers, have more than 1 million plus IP addresses.
Wow.
And believe it or not, like, people still use spreadsheets and open source tools to kind of manage that. And IP addresses need to be managed because, that's how the assets on the network communicate with each other. Like, and if you have a conflict, if heaven forbid, if you end up assigning the same IP address to two different assets, now you have a conflict and you have a potential for outage, right? And so therefore it needs to be managed. And therefore IP address management is critical and becomes harder and harder as your network grows and as your network becomes more complex. And so that's why IP address management is so critical.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. So, Mike, would you mind like sharing us like a case study on how InfoBlox has helped a client achieve their business goals?
Yeah, so I think I'll just kind of go on with the theme we've been talking about a little bit here, and I'm just going to say casinos. I'm going to pick one because they really don't like their names used, but casinos were actually an early adopter, moving workloads out to the cloud to the folks like AWS. And they ran into some of the problems we're talking about. So while AWS has DNS in their Route 53 product, it was two separate tools, two separate things to manage, two separate things to kind of try to track and make work together. And so that created a lot of inefficiencies that cost money and resources, because in their infrastructure before they moved to the cloud, they had all that stuff in a really nice, neat, structured, manageable environment, right? So when they added the cloud workloads, it caused some consternation and just some problems. And then coupled with that, since about 2016, 92% of the malware attacks and the ransomware attacks are utilizing DNS as their pathway into the network. And in fact, you can actually look up online, you can Google fish tank talking to accounting server. And it was a hack that took place several years ago where literally one of the casinos brought in a big fancy fish tank that had an environmental control system on it that was on the network. And hackers were able to gain control of the fish tank and use it as a launch point into their accounting system and take that, stuff that wasn't theirs out of their network. So not only was it tougher to manage and control just from an overall perspective, but it opened up security holes. So with InfoBlox, what we're really able to do, and in fact, this is ongoing now. This is not something that happened years ago, it just started years ago,
Mhm.
is we're able to, like everybody said, take the namespaces and everything that revolves around the management of these addresses, and we can extend it very cleanly and very easily from their on-premise out to their cloud, or you can turn that around and say from the cloud out to their on-prem. But the biggest difference there is it's one infrastructure to the customer, right? So I get to see everything in one spot. I get this visibility to it. We talked about IPAM being this database I can run reports in. I can run reports. I don't care if it's on-prem. I don't care if it's in the cloud provider, right? The AWS cloud. So it brings that all together and gives me back those efficiencies, just a clean and easy way to manage and maintain that. And that saves customer money, right? That they can spend with both our companies on new services they're trying to bring up. And from a security perspective, well, before we get to the security perspective, let me tell you that by moving to an InfoBlox DNS, DHCP, IP address management, visibility model, one of the casinos we're working with has actually got their ability to bring a workload online from 2 weeks down to 15 minutes, right?
Amazing.
That's money to them when they can bring that stuff up that quick. And you know what? Trial it. If customers don't like it, dump it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And move on to the next one. So they have some agility they've never had before. And we helped enable that with you folks. But from a security perspective, you know, it's not only important to secure an infrastructure, but it's important because everybody's going to get hacked, right? Doesn't matter. What we bring to the table that's kind of interesting is we only focus in on these core network protocols like DNS, right? That when it says, I'm going to go to AWS.com, that's where we convert that AWS.com into whatever the IP address is for you guys on the network, right? We track that information, but we not only track the fact that we made that call to AWS, we say it was Shawn, and Shawn's sitting in the AWS office in Houston right now. But tomorrow, Shawn's going to be here with us in Florida at the whatever hotel we're at.
The Rosen.
Right? the Rosen Hotel in Orlando. And we keep that information in that database, right? So let's say our infrastructure gets attacked and somebody wants to steal information. We can tell, oh, you know what? It was Shawn when he was in the AWS office yesterday, right? And instead of, or today, that was when the infection took place. And we can literally kind of zero out that patient zero, the infection point.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows us to react to that stuff much more quickly, much more accurately. And more importantly, in industries like casinos, they have to be able to go to the auditors and say, look, we found the bad person. Shawn infected us, right? And we took care of it and we kicked him off the network and he can't come back on ever again. So those are some of the benefits we bring into customers that are trying to move these workloads back and forth to the cloud, right? We make it very simple, very seamless, and we do it in a very secure manner. So that's what we see on a pretty regular basis.
Okay. I do have a question to how you find out that Shawn is the one that infected the, I'm joking. What I'm asking is,
it would never be me, and it would never be from an AWS office, just to be clear.
Yes.
Shawn, I promise I'm not picking on you. So you mentioned that you use Route 53, you know, to enable some of these solutions. So I want to know, like, what AWS services are you, what other AWS services are you combining to, you know, extend these capabilities that you have?
Well, so we have a synchronization with Route 53 from an authoritative standpoint. So we can read and we can write from Route 53, and you can use Route 53 to actually manage your zones, but we still extend that same namespace across. And so that's really how that's done. You can use, you know, there's some best practices with doing that. You want to make sure that as you synchronize data with Route 53, you're not exceeding what the API limitations are with that service. You want to, choose a place where you actually want to manage the zone from. If you're using native tooling, it might be that you want to manage it from the Route 53 native interfaces. Or if you want to use some of the InfoBlox tooling, you might want to manage it all from the InfoBlox interface. But it's important for you to pick the one that you want to manage it from. The visibility, we're going to provide you either way. And then you want to make sure that you're looking at turning on, services like CloudTrail and your logging zone operations and those kinds of things. And so those are some of the ways that we would integrate with some of the native services and native tooling within AWS.
That's awesome. You guys mentioned, as far as Mike, especially when you were just talking about a couple of important things, obviously like security. Security is job zero here at AWS. So that's a great thing that's already embedded in the identity of your solutions. Along with, you said something amazing, which I love it every time I hear it, as far as agility, being able to spin something up, in 15 minutes, trying it out, testing it out. If it doesn't work, turn it off, shut it down, and you're only paying for what you use, right? So, something going from 2 weeks down to 15 minutes is money. Absolutely. At the bottom line is, this is impacting as far as not only the customer's experience, but, money at the end of the day. So it's really good to see how, your solution is helping partner or customers, bring down that cost that they would have incurred, as well as just helping as far as them stay secure, because I know they're under like super crazy regulations, and like you said, you need to identify who that bad actor is or that that threat is as soon as possible, and being able to what do you call it, quarantine them from being able to infiltrate any further. So all great stuff. I love networking, but I know it's super complex. So it's really good to hear you guys are making things simple for people who may not enjoy it or ones have to deal with that. So that's amazing. Nneoma, you had
I
question?
do have a question.
Okay.
I know they've talked about all this amazing stuff that
Mhm.
their solution does, but I want to know what differentiates your solution from other like IP management solutions, security solutions out there. How does yours differentiate from them?
Who wants to take that one? You?
Yeah, take it. So, one of the main things is if you look at companies that do DDI, which is DNS, DHCP, IP address management, right? There's a couple main players in the on-premise world. There's a few main players out in the cloud world. There's nobody that kind of looks across all of them seamlessly. So at this point in the market and where we're at, we do that. Where to do it with anybody else, you'd have to bring a couple different vendors in. And then when you roll the security piece on it, it really kind of sets us apart, where we bring that all together. And I'll show you that a little bit in the demo later. But it brings it all into not only one management environment, but it's completely API driven, right? So as we start working with, especially more cloud native type companies versus the older brick and mortar, I got my data center type things. All of this stuff is very simple to use REST APIs or, I'm old, so I'll stick with REST APIs, but there's other ones out there where we can just automate those things, not only into how do we deploy, how do we configure, how do we roll out, how do we bring those resources back into house, right? Because none of us give all this stuff away for free, so we want to manage it very effectively. That can all be automated, and even on the security side, when we're talking to a lot of companies, especially enterprise companies, they want to do a concept called SOAR, which is security orchestration with automated response, right? And the biggest problem they have is that most of their security tools spit out about 10% false positives.
Yeah.
Now, you guys know more about automating stuff than I do, but how do you automate when 10% of your stuff coming in is bad or faulty? right? It's very difficult to do. But because of where we sit in the security attack environment, we can actually block things before people are using them. So it's not a matter of them going, hey, why did you shut off my access? We actually get to it quick enough. They don't know that their access has been shut off. And then they have to come justify why they need access to it, right? And you guys, again, are in the software world where things like AI is a big deal, right? And I was reading an article just last week in the security section that said that ChatGPT, as an example, is sending people to sites that have a much higher instance of malware than not, right? So how do you protect yourself? How do you automate against that? We do a very good job with things like that. So are there other competitors to us? Absolutely, in very specific silos. We kind of broach the whole thing and bring it together as one.
Yeah, and just to add what Mike was saying, like on the thing about bringing them together, so the DNS, DHCP, and IP address management. So DNS, like the phone book of the internet, right? So it's kind of convert the human understandable names into the dotted quad, the IP addresses, and then what the benefit of integrating DNS, DHCP. DHCP is the protocol that delivers the IP addresses the first time the device gets on the network, right? Or the IP address changes. So the benefit, so when you use DHCP to deliver an IP address, wouldn't it be better that you also kept a log of, okay, what is this device? Who's using it? Where is it? What operating system it's running? Where is it physically? Is it connected to an access port in this building or a Wi-Fi device in this building? So wouldn't it be nice that you would fingerprint that? And so our solution does that. So when we deliver the IP address, when a device does a broadcast saying, hey, I need an IP address, I want to communicate. And so when it broadcasts that, we'll give it an IP address, but we won't stop there. We'll fingerprint it. We'll do we'll on the network side and also the device side. And imagine trying to do that for a mid-sized enterprise that has 1 million plus IP addresses. That, oh, by the way, IP addresses change, right? That's why it's called dynamic DHCP, dynamic host configuration protocol. So like if you have a spreadsheet trying to do all of that, and you're trying to keep track of like the IP addresses that are getting assigned and reclaim them and reassigned the next day, it's even faster in the cloud workloads, right? They get assigned and reassigned even faster. Trying to do that with the spreadsheet manually is just not possible, right? So the fact that we have this across DNS, DHCP, and IP addresses, we'll fingerprint it, and we'll automatically keep that database updated. So it's always up to date, authoritative. So you get a real-time view of your digital footprint, everything that has an IP address, a heartbeat, digital heartbeat, which is basically IP networks right now, right? So that's the unique sauce. That's the unique differentiator that we bring. So now if you have this, always up-to-date view of your digital estate, whether it's on premises or in the cloud or in private clouds or wherever, and it's correlated, right? Because if you try to do all of this through three different tools, and then now you're trying to correlate IP addresses to devices, to locations, to networks, you can try to get a sense of the degrees of complexity there. That's the advantage of it being integrated. So we take care of that correlation, so you can get to the pain point or the wherever the breaches happen, like Mike was saying, faster. Or you can get to things like, hey, somebody assigned an IP address on premises. You better make sure that that same IP address doesn't get assigned to a cloud workload, because if it does, now you have a conflict, and now that application might come down. So that's the key advantage of kind of bringing it together. Yeah, Chris.
I've always said the IPAM for us, and InfoBlox has a lot of capabilities, but it's a living, breathing thing. It's an active reflection of what's in the DNS, what DHCP has done, what we've discovered in your environment. And then we tie all of that together and keep it up to the very second. So as you go to automate a workload, whether that be something that's on-prem, something that's in your private cloud or in AWS or wherever it may be, you have an accurate accounting of everything, and that you can rely on. You know exactly what the devices are, what they do, and now your automation can spin something up, can spin it back down. And not only do we grab that stuff, do we allocate and do all of the naming, but we, as you spin it down, we then clean up after ourselves as well. And so it keeps things really nice and tidy, and it's very up to date. And you have a nice historical record in the product to see where a device has been, exactly what it's been doing. I can tell you, you know, if it's on a switch, what switch it's on, what port it's on. We grab all that information. If it's a client, I can tell you, roaming around in any of my environments, I can tell you, you know, what AP it might be associated to, or what not. Those are all things that InfoBlox has excelled at for a very, very long time.
I can say personally, a couple moons ago, I was the sole IT guy for a very small financial company, and I can tell you I only had like maybe like 150 200 like just laptops, and just going through that process of just trying to identify and label, and okay, this is on this switch, and oh man, it was just a nightmare. And I only had the capabilities of like updating, the MAC addresses, IP addresses, and things like that. But I was only getting so far, and it just caused more confusion and frustration than anything. So for those, people out there, as far as in the IT field, especially if you're like in a big enterprise, it's no way you could manage that on a spreadsheet. I don't care what type of spreadsheet that is or how often you update it. That's just definitely taking a lot of undifferentiated heavy lifting, and like that's super stressful. So that just resonates with me personally, because I've been that guy that had to update that spreadsheet incorrectly. So this is great. Growing pain.
And Patrick, since you said it was a financial group, right? When you had to go into your federal compliance audit, what's the first thing you have to do?
Oh, you make sure you got to have that report of everything, like, connected to your network and all that. So yeah, those 2 weeks, my door was closed, and those tickets were just going to have to get attended to when they could, because when it's audit season, that wasn't fun. It was literally all hands on keyboard and just a lot of head scratching. So
and I love you mentioned that. So you said for 2 weeks
Mhm.
you were unavailable.
Yep.
Right. And when we're talking to enterprise customers, we'll get into that more in a little bit, but we actually look at how much did it cost to have Patrick out of the field for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Right. Versus how much does a solution really cost?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Pretty soon you're sitting there going, we're really dumb and wasting money for not doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You play faster, easier, track, manage, maintain. It all just becomes a much simpler process.
And that's not even including the error, like the human errors that can also take place in that too, which can then lead to the unattended outages, and doing I think it's called DAD. That's a protocol, like duplicate address detection or something like that. But yeah, I've definitely been going through that, trying to figure out why this is not working. And there's an address conflict. So yeah, I get nerded out about that. But yeah, so. But,
The other thing, and we haven't talked about it a lot, but the other thing that adds complexity to these environments is that so many companies that traditionally have been on-prem have recognized the speed and agility you gain going to the cloud, the elasticity you gain going to the cloud, all the benefits of moving to the cloud. And so they move some of their portions of their workloads over to one cloud provider. They make a strategic decision, they move to AWS. Well, in so many industries like healthcare, FinServe, energy, these industries now are going through a lot of consolidation and a lot of acquisition. So now all of a sudden, a company that moved 50% of their workloads to AWS for strategic reasons, now all of a sudden they acquire a net new company, and that net new company has made an alternative cloud decision, right? So now they have to see workloads or IP addresses in 3 environments, right? And ultimately, they probably want to move those workloads from an alternative cloud environment to AWS so that it's easier to manage, it's easier to build into a pricing strategy, it's easier to build into a consumption commit and all the great things that AWS provides. So really, being able to extend the capabilities of Route 53 to be able to see a multi-cloud environment like that, plus the on-prem, and being able to, as Chris mentioned before, being able to have that bi-directional sync every minute, it greatly reduces your risk of that conflict, but also increases your ability to move those workloads to your desired cloud provider. So I think that's another big driver of why DNS is, right now it has a very big importance to companies, because a lot of companies are going through acquisitions and then ultimately consolidation.
That's a great point. I mean, it's one of my success stories recently where that was exactly the case. So I was working with a pretty large financial company, and they had done a bunch of M&A, and they found out they're all in on AWS, but they found out through this M&A that they also had a bunch of stuff in Azure, and they didn't know about it in another cloud provider, and they needed to move things over to AWS, and they wanted to do that as quickly as possible and provide that consistent space for managing all 3 of those environments. And so we were able to help with that, and we were able to move that migration along very, very quickly and efficiently. And they were able to move from the other cloud providers that they were in. They were able to move those workloads over into AWS. So
thank you so much for that. Like, from everything everyone has been saying, I've been hearing simplify the process, bring simplicity, simplify complex processes. The next thing I wanted to ask is, how does your partnership with AWS contribute to this value proposition? How you uniquely identify yourself?
The partnership with AWS has been phenomenal. We not only engineer our products on AWS, but we also host our solutions on AWS. And we do this because of the overall value that we get from all areas of the business. But from a technology perspective, again, where we see them working well together and complementing technologies is when we take a Route 53 and extend the capability, like we've mentioned a couple of times, or when we take your shared security model and we bring in a layer of security that sits in front of the firewall, if you will. So when you look at what's the customer responsibility in a shared security model, typically they're going to own that access, everything kind of behind the firewall. And so when we can add a layer of security in front of that firewall and reduce the number of the amount of traffic, if you will, hitting that firewall and the amount of false positives, it allows the SOC operators, as an example, to focus on the alerts that are important and the alerts that have the highest risk versus focusing on false alerts or focusing on things that are known entities to be malicious that we can just stop right from the beginning. So I think when you think about how we complement not only Route 53, but how we complement the security framework and the shared security model, I think those are 2 compelling things that we do together.
That's great. I would like to know, as far as, I guess Chris might be able to answer this. Like, what are some of the most common challenges? And you kind of alluded to some challenges, like some recent success stories. But what are some challenges that some clients face when like migrating to a different cloud provider that might have been newly acquired? And I guess, like, how does your company like go through that? Because I know, for example, a company that might just been acquired, there may be some current IP address conflicts, maybe some overlapping subnets or things like that. How do you all like deal with that? Because that seems like that's a lot of work. So how do you streamline that process?
we have the ability within our product to manage that overlapping space in a very easy way. And as you manage that space, you can very easily build a plan to move off of that space onto a unique space. Because everything's all laid out, and because we are able to manage, let's say you have 10/8 in this environment, 10/8 in this environment, and there's a lot of overlap, we can set up multiple instances of that network and have one look at one and one look at another set. So the product has natively always been able to do that. And then from there, you can see assets in both places and you can build a plan. What's really overlapping? What's the scale of the overlap? What's it going to take for me to renumber and to move? The other thing that we see there is that we see fragmented namespace. And so along with that is the desire to come up with one contiguous namespace so that it's not fragmented and it's solid regardless of where the workload may live. And so that's the other thing that we're able to easily do and allow you to move all of those records from whatever the fragmentation is to the consistent namespace, because you can see all of that and you can programmatically build that and you can do it very, very quickly. And so that's where we see really the acceleration of migration into the cloud. That's really where we help with that.
Great. Thank you, for answering that. Yeah, great point, because I know that's a process of its own. So if you guys can like help streamline that and just even prepare for future, especially if a company is looking to expand, of course, more services, more resources, more IP addresses being allocated, right? So this problem just doesn't stop. It's something that can grow, and being able to leverage InfoBlox for that, to take away that hard work is quite impressive.
Yeah, I know some of our viewers will be at this point. Okay, now we know what InfoBlox does. I know what benefits you bring. So what's like the customer engagement process like for you? How can they set up that engaging you? What is the whole process like, from initial consultation or to project completion? What is that whole process like within InfoBlox?
You want to take that?
Yeah. So, as we work with customers, right? Especially with our partners, when we go in and start having discussions, the first thing that's really kind of an eye opener is everybody consumes DNS and DHCP every day of their life, whether they have an iWatch or an Android watch, or whether they've got insulin pumps, or whether they're actually using technology like we are right now, right? These IP addresses are everywhere. And you need your core network to function, right? You need wires, you need switches to connect them to, you need services, whether they're hosted in a data center or out in the cloud with folks like AWS. And in order for all of that to work, you need DNS and DHCP, those two core protocols, to work. The problem for us and our partners typically is everybody consumes it and nobody pays any attention to it, right? So our biggest competitor a lot of times is free, right? We brought up a Unix server and it had DNS on it, or we got a Microsoft server and it had DNS on it, or this, that, or the other. And so just from an overall perspective of knowledge, they don't understand just how important this thing is to them until it doesn't work, right? And then it's real important real quick. And we kind of joke around, what does air and water and DNS have in common? It's everybody, everywhere, everybody uses it, and you really miss it when it's not there, right? So we kind of do a little bit of education there, right? And so if it's a partner engaging, they'll have a little bit of conversation and they'll talk through that a little bit. And then they'll say, what do you use to manage your IP addresses, right? If they say spreadsheets, well, that's great. But now when you extend it into the cloud and you start doing things like Docker containers, right, where the lifespan of the container might be 90 seconds. And how do you track that? Not only just from a basic what IP addresses are used, because by the way, they cost money, right? They're not free, especially in how most of our customers use them. But if I have a breach, if I have a malware infection, how do I track down to that patient zero, right? And you can't do it. So it's kind of an educational process that we go through. And our partners do that with us also, where we're educating our customers on a technology that they use every day and they never think of a lot, right? Until it's not there. So does that kind of answer the question for you?
I think also, if I could add just a little bit to it, like I think the best interactions with our customers is when we go in and we start to understand at a high level what are the outcomes they're looking for, what are the strategic goals that they have, and in the case of working with AWS, oftentimes that strategic goal is to be able to modernize applications, and to do that they need to move workloads to the cloud rapidly, right? But when you need to move workloads to the cloud rapidly, there's kind of three organizations or three work streams that you have to look at. You have to understand network operations. And from a network operations perspective, generally speaking, the goal is how much traffic can we get through and how quickly can we get it through. So there's kind of this concept of let's create 50 lanes of traffic. Let's let all the traffic go 90 miles an hour and just get as much throughput as we possibly can. But there's already also security ops that you have to think about. And from a SecOps perspective, SecOps is usually looking at it more like a toll booth, if you will. And SecOps really wants to kind of stop every car. They want to look inside the car. They want to understand who's everybody in the car, and they want to inspect everything, right, and make sure that everything is as safe as possible. So it's in some ways a competing goal. And then you have cloud operations, which again, cloud operations wants to move as rapidly as they can, because if you want that modernization of workloads or applications, you want that to happen as rapidly as you can to get value out of it quickly. And so sometimes when you think about the engagement, it's start at the highest level. What are you trying to do? And in many cases, when we talk to AWS customers and InfoBlox customers, they want to modernize applications, because they then think, how can we layer in AI into it? They think, then how can we layer in analytics into it? They start to think of all the other things that they can do. And so if you bring those three groups together, you kind of show how InfoBlox can give visibility and assistance across all three of those areas. Because it's very difficult for companies to bring NetOps, SecOps, and CloudOps together on one page with one tool. And I think in many cases, InfoBlox can be that tool that ties the three organizations together, if you will. So we try and start from the top with what's the organizational goal or intended outcome, and then work our way through those three organizations to bring them together through education, as Mike mentioned, and then apply some standardization and visibility and manageability that ultimately helps each one of those organizations feel better and have better capability to move workloads faster. So that's another way to look at how we engage with customers.
And then from there, Shawn, I mean, procurement's easy, right? A lot of times they buy the components for their on-prem stuff directly through our partners. But when it comes to the AWS stuff, they just go to Marketplace and it's right there. They just click on it, spin it up, and have it join what they've already got installed. So it's super simple.
Yeah, it's a great point, Mike. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, all of our components are available to get through Marketplace. We have listings out on private offers out on Marketplace, and we encourage customers to purchase off of Marketplace. So yeah, thank you, Mike, for bringing that up.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. So now I'm thinking, whether your customers are migrating or they are on-prem or they are hybrid, they can actually choose, come to you and they can start off their journey anywhere they are. You can actually help them to get started. So do you have any relevant things that you can share with us?
Yeah, maybe I can take that one, Nneoma. And so we had a large financial services customer. So I'm going to talk about, Shawn talked about this SecOps and bringing SecOps and CloudOps together.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a case study related to that. So we had a large financial services company and headquartered in the US. and downtime was unacceptable to them. Downtime and security risks, they cannot take any security risks. So anything that causes them to bring the network down because of security event, it was really high cost for that. And so what was happening was they had two, uh, you know, for the scenarios like Chris was mentioning, financial services going through a lot of acquisitions. And so they happened to have two public cloud providers, and they were using the native DNS services of both of those for DNS. And that was fine. But what was causing the issue is the SecOps team did not have visibility into the DNS traffic of those cloud native DNS services. And so because of that, that increased the security risk so much so that because of the risk of having a security event and the financial impact of that, um, they had to shut down the cloud services for which they did not have the visibility for the DNS traffic. And so then InfoBlox got involved, and with the InfoBlox solution, we were able to provide visibility. Like Chris was saying, we can do read and write, for example, to the cloud native DNS services. So we're able to provide visibility into the DNS traffic for both of these public clouds, and also the on-prem stuff in like a single pane, and that calmed down the security operations folks. And so they were able to kind of get the visibility. They even put some processes in place to kind of manage that DNS traffic if they saw some malicious behavior. And so they were able to get visibility and put processes in place to turn the cloud native DNS services of these two public clouds. And so that is one example where we were able to bring together SecOps as well as the cloud ops team, so the cloud ops can continue innovating at the rapid pace they want to innovate, while keeping SecOps kind of give them the visibility they need to make sure it doesn't become a risk to the business. So that's one customer use case that we've seen, and we see a lot of these like this one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, if I can give another example too, you talked a little bit about SecOps and Cloud Ops. I'll give an example of net operations and cloud operations. Excuse me. And we haven't talked a whole lot about discovery, but I'll mention discovery capability in this story a little bit. But there was actually a large, oddly enough, networking and security company based out of California, and they had a scenario where they were moving some workloads to the cloud, and believe it or not, they were several thousand employees, and they were still using a very manual process for all their DNS, for all tracking all of their IP, if you will, all their IP addresses. And so they had a scenario where their cloud ops team went out and took some of the IP addresses that they had and leveraged those for cloud deployment, if you will. Because they didn't communicate with NetOps deployed them on some other assets, and then all of a sudden there's a conflict between the IP addresses. Well, that ultimately brought those systems down so that they were not usable anymore, right? Which is like the worst thing you ever want to do is call the CEO and say, "Hey, sorry, we have an outage," right? But in that case, they brought InfoBlox in. What we were able to do was we were able to do discovery. And we were able to go out and identify all the IP addresses that existed, all the devices that existed, run an inventory against it, build that database that Chris has mentioned several times. And then we were able to rationalize and make sure that everybody had a unique, or every device, every application, every site had a unique IP address. And we were able to bring that back up. What was really cool about it is after we did the discovery and got all the systems back up and running, well, now NetOps and Cloud Ops, they could communicate, right? If one of them made a change in the IP addresses, as an example, it would automatically update the database, and the other team would know it immediately, right? And again, they could tie that in with AWS resources as well. So it's a much smoother way to move forward. It's a way to get those two teams to communicate. They don't don't often communicate, as often as they should, or as much as they should, I should say. So, there's a SecOps and a NetOps example.
No, both great examples. I know I've worked at in a SPOG. Like you just want to have that single pane of glass where, the NetOps, you blame one side. That's the only time the communication usually happened, obviously, when there's something wrong. So whenever there was a conversation, it was never good, or, you can see each other, hey, but outside of that, it's usually don't want to see the security team, and the security team is usually just waiting for the networking team to mess something up. So definitely understand that experience. I've done all those things as an incident manager as well. So not fun. I do want to, as far as just we pretty much look past the top of the hour, just to let everyone know who's just watching and joining in. As you guys know, and this is Howdy Partner. We have a weekly live streaming series. We do have InfoBlox, showing us and letting us know how you can, take over the world DNS wise, at least in your own network, and being able to control that, and definitely alleviate a lot of that control, that hard work of trying to maintain DNS, DHCP, and as far as IP address management. So we do have a demo coming up soon. So if you guys are here for that, definitely be patient. We're getting right there to it. So I'm excited as well. But I just wanted to let those know who just joined as far as what we're talking about. So welcome aboard, and definitely please drop your questions in the chat. We definitely want to make sure that we have our experts answer your questions. So if you're interested in the solution, or you have any questions directly from the as far as the InfoBlox team, ask now. We want this to be a conversation that you're more than welcome to join. You're part of it just as much as every one of us on the panel.
Do you want to move to the demo?
If you all want to go ahead and do the demo, you can. I do have, I guess, right before we go to the demo, and you guys kind of alluded to this, but before we do that, Chris, what are some the best practices to follow when deploying your software with AWS services, to ensure, there's a seamless experience for customers? So,
like I said earlier, I think that you want to be mindful that you're paying attention to the rate limits of the native services and the APIs and how fast you can make those calls. This, in particular with Route 53, the service team does have limits to those, and so you want to make sure that you're doing that within those confines. You want to decide on really the best place where you're going to manage that data. Is it going to be using the native service, or do you want to manage it really through the InfoBlox service? Either is fine, because we can give you the visibility, but be consistent really with where you're going to manage that. And then, decide what your strategy is going to be. If you're doing a lot of pipeline creation, you want to see zone operations and that type of thing, turn on CloudWatch, make sure that you're capturing that data. So those are really some of the best practices from a native service interaction standpoint. That you want to be mindful of when you're interacting with any of the native AWS services.
Cool. Thank you. I guess we can, if you guys are ready for the demo, I'm sure those are watching are very excited to see this in action. We talked about it quite a bit. So let's get a taste and a vision of how InfoBlox looks.
Sure. Now, what I will say is I'm actually brave enough to demo on a live system. So be patient, be kind, but here we go.
It's never deal.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go in here and we're going to go to what we call our cloud services portal. And this is the main screen that allows us to administrate, configure, report on anything DNS, DHCP, security related. And we can instantly, by the way, all of these blocks are widgets. I can move them around, I can resize them, to whatever I want to see that's preferable to me. And so just to look at a few things, here are the top blocked web destinations based on policies that we've set up for this particular infrastructure that we don't want to let through. So, we can look at anonymizers, whether it's peer-to-peer traffic, video and computer games, online ads, right? Those all have criteria around them that we can identify by DNS and actually put a policy in place that says, I don't want to see that on the network.
Wow.
So that's a big deal. Now, on the right side is the bigger deal, right? So this is communication threat classes and where they're going. So these are the hacking type things, right? And these are infrastructure related things, which I can see there's a whole bunch of them. I can actually click in and go further in. Again, I said this is a live system, so I'm not going to do that because it will take some time. But we can even go down here to custom policies. We can go down and find malicious. Here's malware. So I have 325 instances of malware that have come through. And if I look on the right, and I know it's small print, not that I expect you to read it, but it's telling me where that malware is being identified as originating with. So I've got all this stuff right at my fingertips. I can go down here further and see how many DNS requests am I running in my infrastructure. I can look at the DNS firewall and say, how many really nasty things have gone on at what time during the day. I can see what kind of operating systems are out there. All of them have a very unique footprint when we fingerprint them. And so we can pull up and tell you what some of the endpoints are. We can tell you who the busy talkers are, right? That is actually, it may sound silly, but we found through our threat intelligence team some very interesting malware and malicious behavior going on in the internet, because we found some very unknown named servers generating as much traffic as AWS.com. Right? When we go out and look at people trying to go to AWS, we expect there to be a lot of them, right? Because between the services you guys provide as well as your storefront services, there's a lot of traffic going to AWS. We wouldn't expect that by some unknown endpoint in the network. And so when we saw that, our threat team started researching it and found out it was actually a malicious site that was collecting data and doing all sorts of nasty stuff. So sometimes we want to know who the top talkers are. We can go see what kind of threat classes. We can even see some of the content stuff, right? So we've got anonymizers, Microsoft Teams, video and computer games, Skype, parked for sale domains, which is going to come in here important in a minute. We can even identify gambling, pornography, stuff like that, based on DNS information.
Wow.
So, this is just a place I can put what I want to see, high level, and drill down in from here. Right?
Could this be useful for like customers who may want to know like how many? Should they focus more on like the mobile app side? Are more people like customers coming in from like an Android, or can that also help them understand their customer as well, as far as DNS wise?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We can actually deploy policies from this, especially on the security side, out to the iPhones, out to the Android devices, and even though they're not physically attached to the corporate network per se, we can actually deploy policies out and manage and monitor what they're doing from a DNS perspective, even when they're out remote. So it can be very handy seeing who's doing what and where.
Oh, great. That's great. And is there a different pane of glass? Because you did mention that the security team as well as the networking team are able to at least see this visible, have the visibility on this. Could there be something where certain like logins like have certain accesses, or like certain groups, or Is this somewhere where they are all able to see at least the same windows?
Yeah, I mean, let's keep really clear here. We do DNS and DHCP, so we're not really watching logins and multi-factor authentications and that bit, other than the traffic generated from a DNS and perspective. So, are we going to see logins and stuff?
No. What I was referencing was more of as a security person logging into your InfoBlox platform. Will they see the same dashboards, or could someone customize? Because the security team may be more focused on firewall activity versus the.
They can customize per login to see if they want to see. Yep.
Cool.
All right. So, if we want to manage our IPAM or our DHCP, that happens under the manage section. If we want to look at policies, and we're going to take a quick look here at a security policy. And I want to show you some things we do that are kind of unique and special. And again, I told you it's a live network, so some of this is going through and pulling up live data, so it takes a second. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into this custom security policy. We're going to edit it. And I just wanted to give everybody an idea of how simple it can be. So we've got a policy called Demo Security Policy, and we can put a description on it. We can enable things like geolocation, and Chris, being much smarter than me, can explain the ins and outs of it. But basically, we can tell the geography within the world where the packets are going to or coming from, which is an interesting piece of information because we can have threat feeds that say, maybe I'm the federal government and I don't want any traffic from these 5 countries to be communicating with my network, right? So we can do some of that with geolocation, and it's as easy as turning this tab on, right? We have different deployment models. So sometimes we want to be able to let things do resolution for DNS and DHCP at a site where we might lose connectivity to the cloud. We can click the button here for local on-prem resolution and take care of that. And then the nice part here is it shows kind of how it works. So step 1, somebody makes a request. Let's say it's badguy.com. And it goes through this little application called a DNS forwarding proxy out to our cloud-based solution. And we do whatever policy checks and all that we need to do on it. And if it looks good, we'll send it on out to the big, wide open internet. And when it responds back, we'll do some checking again. And as long as everything's okay, it gets dropped back to the end user. So that's kind of the traffic flow, right? But what I do want to show you is these policy rules. Now, in the security realm, there are multiple groups that do security feeds or threat feeds. We've got government agencies, we've got vendors, and they all really focus on different specific things that they're looking at. So for example, at InfoBlox, we're going to look at DNS queries all day, all night to look for abnormal behavior, right? But if we look down through this, here's an anti-malware feed. Here's a ransomware feed. Here's one called DGA. Now that one's interesting. DGA stands for Domain Generated Algorithm. And it's actually a way a hacker uses DNS to copy information in and out of your network, right? That's how the fish tank stole information and got it out through the security stack, right? So we've got all these different feeds, and most of them are not InfoBlox feeds. They're feeds that we've gotten. Well, there's Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Office of whatever that means, foreign something or other, right? So we've got these feeds from all over the place. And what we've been able to do is take all of these feeds, bring them together, normalize them, get rid of duplicates, and create kind of one security super feed that we can actually use with our tools as well as other vendors' tools in the security stack, right? So this gives us a higher propensity of finding bad activities quicker and easier out there at the very first start of conversation or intent to communicate, which is where DNS plays in. So this is all right here in the policies. Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to go down here to reports.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to pick something that a lot of people don't think about, but it's actually a really big deal. It's called lookalikes. If I can get this cursor to work right. So what a lookalike is somebody that makes a website address or name look like something else. And a good example might be our company is InfoBlox.com. Well, to the human eye, does a capital L and an I, or a small L and a capital I, look the same? Absolutely, right? So it tricks the eye, but at the same time, it's sending us to some place that may want to do something maliciously. So at the computer level, at the binary level, we look at these domain names, and stuff like the capital I versus the small L will pop out very quickly. And there's all sorts of other things that hackers do to fake out people's vision so that they pick the wrong site.
They're smart too. Nowadays, you can register a domain and use Punycode, and unless you're looking at it, you would not know the difference between the character on one keyboard versus the character on another, because it looks like an A or it looks like a B, or because it is, but really it's not, because underneath they're using a character from another type of keyboard, or so it's really they're really smart these days. So
yeah, so if we look at this just real quick page here, it talks about lookalike domains, what they are, and it says in the last 7 days, we've seen 41,000 lookalikes happen on just this list we're tracking. We've seen 12,900 of them that are on custom watch domains, and 177 of them are threats. So just that quickly for the security team, we've gone from 41,000 might be bad or malicious down to here's 177 that are absolutely bad. And we can click on here and it will take us right into the bad lookalikes where they're trying to do phishing attacks or spear phishing or just all sorts of so that's something that we actually use with our customers a lot, because they're not aware of just how many people are trying to scam their customers. And one of the big ones, and I don't know if you guys know this, but could you tell me what one of the most copied domains from a lookalike perspective there is out there? Anybody? Quick answer. It's actually Rolex.
Wow. I was thinking like
I
Google or
I was thinking Google.
like
But
Google.
if I can get a customer Rolex to go to the wrong place and put some maybe credit card information or something in,
Yeah,
right, it's quick money. So, it's just one of those things that people really don't think about, but this is what we eat, live, and drink on a daily basis, is watching these DNS domains and making sure they're not malicious or doing bad things to our customers. So from here, I'm going to drop down to research, and this is the heart and soul of any SecOps group. And I don't know if you guys know this, another interesting little statistic, but if I'm a level 1 security analyst, my lifetime in the job is about 8 months. And at the end of 8 months, I either get promoted or I quit and go into a completely different industry because I've had it, right? And so if we look at this dossier that I'm clicking on here, dossier is, think of it as a security analyst on steroids. It's got machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence in it. And what it's doing is it's going to that super feed I created from all those threat feeds, and it's allowing me a very quick and easy way to go look at any potential threat and really quickly analyze it. And I can do it by a domain name, an email address, a host name, an IP address. There's a lot of different things. But just as an example, I'm going to go in here and grab this AVS VM Cloud, which was something that was used back in the SolarWinds hack a couple years ago. And we instantly start getting some information. And again, it's going through a whole set of data to pull this up. But I can see that there were 4 DNS records associated to it, but 9,000 IP addresses. I can go down through here and see the cyber threat advisory. And if I click right here, it will download it and print it for me. It will show who initially found it. So in this case, it wasn't InfoBlox. FireEye was the first company to really diagnose it and tell us what was going on. It was who created the record, who hosted the record, and everything. And it shows us over here the timeline of when it was detected and found, and who found it, and what threat feeds, and just on and on, and pretty much anything I want to know about this threat, down to and including something that's very near and dear to SecOps people, which is the MITRE framework, right? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this, but the MITRE framework is a group that put together this framework that shows every attack, every tool, every technique, and how they used it in their attack to infiltrate a network and do whatever bad thing they were going to do. And they have some columns in the MITRE framework, like how did they get access? How did they execute? How did they spread themselves around so you couldn't get rid of them? How did they get root privileges? How did they evade and defend themselves? How did they get more credentials, right? So all these different things about how a hacking attack occurs is in this framework. And so here it shows that in command and control and exfiltration, that's where we found what was going on with this AVS VM Cloud. And we can go in here and get a lot more information on it. And that is incredible, because I just did in about 30 seconds what it used to take several hours for a security analyst to go through and figure out as far as what was going on. We just pulled it up that quickly. Now, we could have stopped there, but we decided to go a little bit step further. And we have this report up here called Insights. And this is taking the information we have on what is going on with DNS DHCP and what we know from the threat feeds. And we're actually really breaking it down to, in this case, we've got 1 high priority threat, 4 medium, 4 critical, and then over here, we've got some total open insights. So you've seen me put things up here where we've got tens of thousands of alerts or notifications that something's going on. With Threat Insights here, I'm down to 10, and there's only 4 that are critical and 1 that's high priority. And I can go right down through here and see what's what. So the critical one, here's an outlier for an emergent domain, and I can go investigate it right here. I can pull down more information on what does it mean to be an outlier and what we should do to fix it, right? I can go down here. Here's a DGA. If I click on that one and bring it up, it goes through what is a DGA, what I should do to change it, and when I saw it in the network, and I can see which clients, what time, how many events were associated with it, all just at a click of a button here, right? It's very, very simple to go find what the very critical tasks are, where my biggest risks are, take care of them, stop them, and move on to the next one. Because most security operations teams only get to about 4% of these indicators a day, because there's just so much going on. And we did a huge push here to get it down and very simple. And keep in mind, this is right up in front on the intent to communicate. So somebody goes, I want to go to badguy.com. We say, wait a minute, I don't want you going to badguy.com. So we don't give you the IP address.
Right.
This isn't I'm in your network doing nasty things. Now I cut you off and figure out where you spread throughout the network. I'm catching it right up at the beginning. And the beautiful part here, doesn't matter if it's on the customer's on-prem network or if it's on some server they've spun up in the AWS cloud. We can find it. We can take care of it. So I'm going to stop there because that was a lot of stuff, and come back to the stream here. What'd you think? It worked. It was a live demo, and I could actually walk through it. So
The demo guys were with us today. That's amazing, you know. So wow, that's a great. You know, I think it just speaks volumes as far as the product and you know how great it is. And you know that AI/ML component. I was waiting to ask, like, you know, what are y'all, you know, you guys doing to, you know, to do that. So, and also someone also in the chat says, you know, thank you for the live demo. So thank you for viewing as well. But that was really good. We really enjoyed that. I do have one. Do you have a question?
I do have
Nneoma?
a question.
Go
My
ahead.
question would be, how can a customer get started on this? How long does it take to deploy your solution? I see like the different metrics, the different rules. How long does that take typically to like set it up? How much support also can they get from your
Mhm.
team while deploying your solution?
So that's a great question. It could be 10 minutes or 15 days. And I'm joking around a little bit, but I think I mentioned earlier that entire interface I just showed you is all API driven.
Mhm.
So if I have a well-versed customer in automation, they can literally write a script and we've got great documentation on how to do it, that reads a data file that says I need 100 different subnets with 100 IP addresses in each one, and I want to deploy them to these zones or these physical locations or wherever they need to go into the network, and they push a button and it just automatically goes and spins them up. And in that case, I could do a couple thousand in literally a couple minutes. Right. And I can apply policies to them. I mean, literally everything you saw me do as far as configuration and setup can completely be automated.
Nice. And including, since we're on the topic of automation, is there a way that we're able to, you know, set up like maybe AWS config or some type of way to monitor and not only notify you, because I know you guys do a great job as far as like notifying of like threats, but is there, I mean, this may be an opportunity for the future, but any way to have that automation in there, automatically blocking an IP address, automatically, you know, do some type of, I'm not sure, like some checks, but on top of automating the process of, you know, getting that environment spun up, any automation as far as ensuring like repairs of any problems or like blocking a known
Patches.
thread or patches or just something that where you see the problem, but what else can we do with that? Because I know you did mention that there's some type of SIEM incorporated. I don't know if it was SIEM incorporated.
So I'm sure Chris has some thoughts on it too, but I think about the fact that we're automating with XDR, MDR, endpoint vulnerability scanners, firewalls. You know, there's somewhere between 80 and 100 integrations written right now with a lot of other vendors and manufacturers that you folks deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But things like, if I bring a new endpoint on the network, maybe I want to run a vulnerability scanner on it right when it comes on, right? Just to make sure it's clean from point zero. Well, because we're doing this DHCP and handing it an IP address, we know it came on the network.
Right.
So we can trigger that to go fire off something. Or if we find a bad guy trying to get into the network and we know it's bad, we can go tell the firewall, block him, right? And that can all be an automated thing. And we can go out to SIMs and SOARs, right? So from a SIM perspective, hey, I just added somebody new to the company. Here's the steps to get them online with, you know, whatever that would involve us. Down to, I had an attack. I went out and had the firewall shut it down. I had the vulnerability scanners run. That's all great, but now I got to collect all that information and take it back to the SOAR for audit purposes, right? And we can do that too. So there's a lot of that that's been done.
I think we have a pretty extensive ecosystem with partners that we've integrated with. I think that there's opportunity for us to do more and to do more with some of the native service teams at AWS, and I think we will. But there's a lot that you could do now. So as part of the ecosystem, one of the things that we have is an outbound API. So if we see something that takes place in our system and you want a notification to go somewhere, you can set that up. So, take for instance, so config, and then if you have Security Hub running on top of it, you could configure Security Hub to take in a third-party source, and we can trigger something to go into there. Right? Lots and lots of customers are using that tool. You would have to write that, but it would be very, very simple to do. So there's really, we talk to customers a lot, and I'll go back to something that Shawn said. It really is, when I get into conversations with customers, I want to understand what their outcomes are. I want to know what their tooling looks like, and where we can help automate with that individual tooling, whether it's the security tooling like what we've just seen that Mike's shown us, or whether it's network tooling, or whether it's some sort of automation through Terraform or Ansible or whatever it is that they're looking at doing to help automate their CI/CD pipelines or whatever that may be. The product is very vast, and it has a lot of capabilities. So understanding customer outcomes and what it is that they want to do is really, really important, and driving towards that outcome.
Great. So that's a great answer. Because you have all that data, you have all the information, and it's rapid, as you mentioned, especially your, customers are looking to, leverage, the agility of being on the cloud, but being able to also have that remediation process that's like automatic would be really awesome. Maybe in the future, I can work on something to where we have some prefabricated remediation options that's like in AWS config and pushes into Security Hub and maybe doing some OWASP stuff. So, definitely great things now, but I'd love to see as far as, that better together story as always. So that's really awesome.
And I want to say that now that we've seen like the technical capability of the platform and what people can do with InfoBlox, I want to talk about money. A lot of people are interested in money. How can InfoBlox help them save? Especially with the partnership, the collaboration with AWS. How does InfoBlox help their customers save on costs?
Yeah, we haven't touched on this too much during the discussion, but I think my experience has always been that when people move to the cloud, they're one of the attributes they're looking for is higher productivity, and you achieve higher productivity partly through having a single set of tools, having a single set of policies when you make changes, and I think. When I look at what we do fundamentally, because we give that single pane of glass, and we give that one tool set to enhance, on-prem, cloud, or multi-cloud environments, there's certainly a productivity savings that is helpful. There's a savings in training. There's a savings in training from, having to train on one tool versus multiple tools, which I think customers appreciate, because most customers you talk to, they're not getting more networking individuals to help them move to the cloud, right? If anything, they're getting less resource, so they have to do more with less. So that's certainly a savings. And then, when you look at savings from a grander picture, I think anytime you can take workloads and move them in 15 minutes versus 2 weeks, as Mike mentioned earlier, that creates an enormous savings, because the quicker you can get to a cloud environment, the quicker you're gonna ultimately save money. So I think the biggest savings is going to come from just how rapidly we can move customers customers and workloads from on-prem or another cloud environment to AWS in this situation.
Awesome. I do have like one last, like one of my last questions. We may have some more
I don't have any
questions.
more questions.
But I guess to wrap this all up, in my opinion, as far as like what's next for InfoBlox, what can we see it coming, and what our customers have look forward to as far as the near future.
Patrick, you're asking the difficult question of what's next from a product roadmap perspective. So it's always difficult. But I will share a couple of thoughts specific to AWS, and then a little bit of a thought relative to product. But specific to AWS, we're excited about the relationship. We're going to continue to drive more and more of our business through Marketplace. Our customers are asking for it. Our customers want to do it, and we certainly want to engage with the team here. So you'll see a lot more engagement between AWS and InfoBlox on all paths: how we engineer, how we host, and how we engage with our customers. From a product perspective, I think it's safe to say that we're going to continue to drive more and more of our products to fully operate in the cloud and to look at all sides of the equation, being both security and networking. So when you think of AI, and you mentioned AI a little bit earlier, and it's I think top of mind for everybody. How do we continue to bring AI into more of our product portfolio? How do we continue to bring machine learning into more of our analytics? So I think you'll see a lot of interesting and wonderful product announcements coming up in the next few months. But those we can't talk about here. But we're excited to talk about them with you in a couple months.
Awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate that. It's been a pleasure speaking as far as with you all. I've learned a lot. Hopefully, the viewers have learned a lot. They've been engaged. They're still here, as far as after all of this, these amazing talks. So definitely excited about the continuous Better Together story that you mentioned, Shawn. And I know this episode has been not necessarily a long time coming, but very happy that we were able to go ahead as far as have a really great show. And thank you. So unless you guys have some closing remarks, it's really been a pleasure, and it's always a pleasure to speak with you.
No, I would just like to say, Patrick and Nneoma, it's been wonderful working with the two of you through the setup process for all this. You two have been great. So the whole team and I want to just thank you two, and we appreciate everything.
Yeah, and thank you for the awesome questions and walking us through the tool set before and the preparation. So appreciate that, and look forward to kind of continue innovating on and with AWS. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Patrick. Nneoma, thanks so much. You guys have been great to work with. I'm excited about our partnership. I'm looking forward to hopefully speaking with you guys again
soon.
Awesome. All right, everyone. You all take care. And this is Howdy Partner. Definitely see us next week. We do have, as far as a really good show going on. So again, we're going to be here Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Pacific time. And definitely as far as tuning in, and definitely please, if you haven't already, make sure you let us know how we did as far as with the survey. It's very important for us to go continue to improve. And if you want to get in touch with InfoBlox, we can also make sure that we get you in touch with the right people, to solve your DNS, IPAM, as well as DHCP issues. That is not easy to deal with, so they can definitely assist with taking that pain away. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.